And with everything, John, to play for at the moment, what do you make... First, let's start with this Labour-Palestine plan, recognising Palestine as a state. It's an interesting move. Is it a sensible move from the Labour Party?
Well, first of all, it's not quite clear until the manifesto comes out what they actually mean by this, whether it's a unilateral declaration, a bit like Ireland have done recently, or if it's more of a, we will recognise it at some point in the future, which ultimately has been the long-term policy of the British government towards a two-state solution anyway. But clearly the sort of presence that's been given to this is Labour seem to be a bit worried about how much the issue might affect them in some of their stronger areas. We've seen them have issues with this in some of the recent by-elections. There's a few candidates standing against them specifically on this issue. So the question is, does it bring in those voters who really care about Gaza and Palestine? And does it alienate people who are, a bit more nuanced and moderate on the issue?
That's the difficulty, isn't it? Because it will, of course, anger Israel, anger the Israeli Prime Minister. They are a key ally in this country. Also, it would be going against what the United States is saying currently. But I think the thing is for Labour isn't the problem that in the local elections they suffered a little as a result of this issue. They've lost quite a few Muslim voters because of this issue. You had that clip go quite viral of Angela Rayner talking with the Muslim community in her constituency. There was quite a bit of anger there. Is this just to try and win some of those voters back?
I think it's partly that. I mean, I imagine there's a lot of people in the Labour Party who do genuinely believe this is a good idea. I don't think it's pure politicking, but I think giving it the prominence and putting it in the manifesto probably is factoring in those political decisions, particularly the West Midlands Melty. That was very close, where there was a startup candidate who focused predominantly on Gaza. I think he's running in one of the constituencies as well. So it's both, I think. I think it is something they care about, something they feel they should be saying something about. But there is a reason to be making it so prominent, and that is, voters in these seats where Labour are normally very strong.
It was interesting listening to our two people that we're featuring today from around the country. One saying he's been a Tory voter, but he's moving to Labour. Another saying he was voted for everyone just about, but he's thinking of moving to Reform. All parties need to be careful not to shoot themselves in the foot, don't they, on pretty simple issues, which frankly is what the Prime Minister seems to have done yesterday.
Yes, and this is starting to become a bit of a theme for Rishi Sunak's campaign, really, that he's making mistakes that don't need to be made. And I think particularly, for the sort of voters that the Conservatives are really trying to target, those who are thinking of going to Reform, those who are a bit older, a bit more sort of culturally conservative, this is the sort of thing that gets you a lot of bad publicity for no real gain. I mean, I think by the end of the day, the story of him skipping the events will probably have had more of a negative impact than anything that can be gained from this interview with ITV, which the news channel have said didn't have to be last night.
Bit of an own goal, it appears, though, as prioritising an interview over D-Day commemorations. What do you make of this recent polling, though, John, that shows the Reform Party almost neck and neck with the Conservatives? Do you think that would actually play out on election day?
I mean, it's a very dramatic shift. I would leave it a few weeks to see how that polling settles down. When you have a big announcement, you normally have a surge like this. It's still not clear how well Reform can get their vote out on the ground. But I think the Tories need to be really worried about it. This could be, even if Reform don't surge quite as high as that, if they have a strong showing, there's dozens of seats where that could be the difference, not so much between them and Reform winning, but where Labour can potentially sneak through the middle if Reform are peeling votes off the Conservatives. So definitely something for the Tories to be worried about. And, mistakes like this, sort of implying that you don't care that much about D-Day are exactly the sort of thing that motivate many of those voters.
We're also hearing, we're going to talk to a minister a little bit later on this hour, John, about child benefit and how the tax breaks on that. Where they're really aiming for the middle classes. The government's saying, well, look, we're going to increase the point at which you have to start paying anything on that from £60,000 to £120,000. That's an interesting move because it is a move towards the better off, isn't it? Why start throwing tax breaks in effect at the better off at this stage in an election campaign?
Yes, it's exactly that. And, this was a policy that George Osborne introduced because he thought this was a benefit cut that he could politically get away with. It used to be everyone would get child benefit. He put in a cap on earnings because it saves you money and no one really minds. But it's interesting. And I think, again, it sort of shows how worried the Tories are at the moment, that in their traditional voters, particularly, those who are a bit younger, people who have children who receive this. So, you're maybe in your 40s or your 50s, even though you have a very good job and you're earning good money, you're not considering voting Conservative. And they're going to have to offer something there. But really, as you say, the obvious attack on this is at a time when we're looking for public spending opportunities, at the time where the tax burden is very high. It doesn't seem particularly fair or indeed sensible during an election campaign for your big announcement to be a giveaway to the highest proportion of earners.
It is something that people have been complaining about for a while. They don't see the way that the child benefit is decided as particularly fair. This taking in the household incomes. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for your time.